Algebra 2, section 9.6. We're looking at reciprocal functions, okay? So reciprocal functions, a reciprocal is when I invert my fraction. So here, the cosecant, now you've got a table A on page 437, so I haven't written it all out for you, but this is the abbreviation for cosecant. Cosecant is a reciprocal function of sine theta. Well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so what have we done? We've inverted it. Now the hypotenuse is on top and the opposite is on bottom. The secant of theta is the reciprocal function of cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so if we flip that, cosecant is hypotenuse over adjacent. Cotangent is the reciprocal function of the tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so for the cotangent, we've flipped it, we've inverted it, we have adjacent over opposite. So that just needs to be memorized, that the cosecant is the reciprocal function of sine. Secant is reciprocal function of cosine. Cotangent is reciprocal function of tangent, okay? So get that memorized. Now the way that that helps us, or the way we're going to use this in example 9.6a, we are given a triangle. Let's copy it down here. It's a right triangle. I have 1.76, I have 1.45, and we're looking for theta. Okay, so here the cosecant of theta, cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite, so the hypotenuse 1.76 over the opposite just gives 1.76, and so on. So it's just like learning sine, cosine, and tangent all over again, only upside down each time. So just like we did before, only now we could list 6 functions. Cosecant is 1.76 over 1, but the sine would be 1 over 1.76. So follow the first example down in your textbook. Now in the second one, it uses a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So they have used decimals, and we generally don't want to do that. For now, if that's what they give you, that's what we can do. But here in the second example, notice that they've used their 30, 60, 90 triangle. They've actually used a different orientation, but it's okay. So the sine of 30 degrees, here's my 30 degrees, the sine is going to be the opposite over the hypotenuse 2. So what's the reciprocal function of the sine? It's going to be cosecant. So cosecant of 30 degrees will be equal to 2. I'm inverting. Now the cosine of 30 degrees, because it's a 30, 60, 90, our reference angle is 30. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, square root of 3 over 2. So the secant, which is the reciprocal function of cosine, will actually be 2 over the square root of 3, but we're going to have to work with that a little bit, getting 2 square roots of 3 over 3. And finally, the tangent of 30 degrees is equal to opposite over adjacent 1 over the square root of 3, which has to be rationalized, giving the square root of 3 over 3, and the cotangent of 30 degrees here. Now we don't want to flip this one because we're in it with a radical underneath. Let's go back to the original and invert that. We're actually just going to have the square root of 3 over 1, which is simply the square root of 3. So we can find all 6 functions there. Okay, now on page 438 underneath this, they also then repeat the same problem using calculator values instead of fractions. So here you would see 0.5, and here you would have 2, and each one would have a calculator answer. All right, so do whichever is requested of you. Okay, I think there's one final idea here on page 439. Now we want to find the angle instead. So if I am given that the cosecant of theta is equal to 3. Remember, in order to find the angle, we have to use the arc functions or the inverse functions. But if you look on your calculator, now some calculators have them, but ours does not have a secant, a cosecant, and a cotangent. So we have to work carefully and use what we have. So I have to remember that my cosecant means 1 over sine of theta. So 1 over sine theta is equal to 3. If I want to solve for sine theta, I'm going to have to clear this equation of fractions. So I'm going to multiply by the sine of theta. In geometry, we'll learn a much quicker way to do that. But right now, let's clear the fractions. Will give me 1 equal 3 sine theta. But I want sine theta by itself, so now I'm going to turn around and divide by 3. So 1/3 is equal to the sine of theta. Now remember how to do that in your calculator. You know that 1/3 is the value we have, and we want to find the angle, so we're going to use arc sine, the second button, and the sine, which will tell us that our angle is approximately equal, theta is approximately equal, I should use a squiggle, it's approximately 19.5 degrees, depending on the rounding. Looks like they did not round, they put them all out there. Generally there will be some rules there, so don't forget, if you need to find the angle, you're going to have to use the arc function or the inverse function, but first you have to put it into a function that we actually have in our calculator. So again, study the examples, do your best. I know this is brand new information. It's very important information. I understand that you're probably not going to get every question. Do your best, do what you can. Contact me through my schoolworks if you're struggling, if you're having difficulty. But really focus on it because this is all continuing through. Now obviously we'll have to do a little more review in geometry than usual, but still, if you have been exposed to it once, if you've done your best, if you've really worked at it and focused on it, it's going to come back to you easier than the ones of you that don't put any work into it. So please do your best. Let me know if I can help further. All right, have a good week. Bye.